Welcome to AK Anime Explainer. Today is explanation of Soul Land 3, Legend of the Dragon King Part 235. Without any delay, start explanation. When he had awakened from meditation, Tang Wulin discovered that Gu had laid her head against his thigh. She was sleeping soundly. Looking at her lying there, Tang Wulin could not prevent his emotions from getting the better of him. He caressed her long hair gently. Gu, oh Gu. Why do you have an Aya's face? There's no sign of makeup on you at all. What happened to you? There was no way he could treat her in this place that was very likely to be the Great Star Do Forest. He could only heal her injuries after getting out of here. He had to proceed with caution step by step now. On the other hand, Shrek City's downfall would have sent a shockwave throughout the entire continent. Therefore, as a leader of the Shrek 7 monsters, he would undoubtedly suffer from an enormous amount of stress even after leaving this place. He could clearly remember that Atlas Dolor Yunming had told him that they were Shrek seeds before he ascended into the sky. Shrek Academy cultivated them, and Tang Wulin would not be the man he was without Shrek. There was no doubt that he was duty-bound to avenge Shrek. Clenching his fists tightly, he struggled to keep himself from recalling the familiar faces in Shrek Academy. Sorrow was useless, so he had to be strong. He wondered how his companions were. They should have been fine after the bomb was blocked. Tang Wulin procured his soul communicator from his storage soul tool. Just as he had expected, there was no signal on the communicator, so he could not reach anyone outside. He sighed, careful not to wake Gu, and then he procured some dry rations to eat. In the distance, the 10,000-year soul ring that arose from the Scarlet Fire Monkey King's body had already dissipated after some time. There was no doubt that the ring was wasted. However, Tang Wulin and Gu had no need for a soul ring right now. Tang Wulin would not have killed it if not for the Scarlet Fire Monkey King's surprise attack. The soul beasts that still existed on the continent today, especially powerful ones, were already as rare as unicorn's horn. Meanwhile, Tang Wulin's chest tightened suddenly when he thought of the emerald demon bird. He turned his head to the side and took a glance. By his side, Gold Song had coiled itself like a snake, and the emerald demon bird was right in the middle of the coil. It was unusual that the wound on its body had so swiftly healed completely and was covered with feathers once again. It was already awake as it looked at Tang Wulin with its red ruby-like eyes. It did not even struggle with Gold Song winding around its body. Tang Wulin frowned as he stared at the emerald demon bird. If he had had his way, he would have already killed the bird. Its reputation alone was enough of a reason for him to do away with it. The emerald demon bird seemed to feel his hostility as its body recoiled. It looked at Gu lying on his thigh and gave out a few crisp chirps. Gu's body jerked, and her long lashes lifted as she groggily opened her eyes. "What's going on, little emerald? I was having a nap. Why'd you wake me?" "Chirp, chirp, chirp," the emerald demon bird called out again. Gu turned over her body and looked at Tang Wulin by her side. She immediately pouted her lips and spoke, "Father, little emerald says that you wish to harm it. Were you trying to scare it?" Tang Wulin was stunned for a moment. "You can understand what it's saying?" Gu nodded and spoke, "Yes. I'm little emerald's master, so naturally, I understand it." Tang Wulin's face was filled with astonishment. "Is that true? Are you sure?" Gu nodded once again. "Of course I'm sure. Take a look if you don't believe me. Little emerald, am I beautiful?" Emerald demon bird hastily nodded. Tang Wulin could not help laughing. "So am I handsome?" Emerald demon bird glared at him ferociously, then turned its head away. Its human-like behavior made Tang Wulin gawk in bewilderment. "Ha ha ha ha." Gu laughed aloud joyously. "Father, release it quickly. I promise that it won't hurt me." Tang Wulin squinted. Even though he was still concerned, he thought that it should be fine judging by the look of the emerald demon bird. Moreover, he was by Gu's side, so he was not afraid. "Gold Song, release it." Gold Song flung its tail once as a green glow surged skyward. The emerald demon bird soared straight into the sky. Tang Wulin raised his hand to catch it but was stopped by Gu. The emerald demon bird spun around for one circle in the sky before it spread its wings and descended slowly. It slowed its descent before finally landing on Gu's shoulder. It affectionately rubbed its head against hers. Was it truly tame? This was Tang Wulin's first time learning that a human was capable of taming a soul beast. Moreover, the variant emerald demon birds before his eyes had at least a 10,000-year cultivation base, so it would certainly be very helpful if Gu was truly able to domesticate it. The emerald demon bird appeared extremely docile and did not show the slightest hostility. It stood on Gu's shoulder obediently and used its head to rub against her long hair occasionally. Tang Wulin was relieved. Gold Song cruised its way to his side. With a flash of golden light, it fused into his body and vanished. Little Emerald, that's your name from now on. Gu petted Emerald Demon Bird with a smile. Why don't we call it Emerald Flower? Green body with red eyes. Doesn't it look like a red flower on a nest of green leaves? Tang Wulin suggested sincerely. Chirp, chirp, the Emerald Demon Bird crowed in fury. Gu pouted her lips and spoke, Little Emerald doesn't like it. I'll call it Little Emerald then. Tang Wulin glared at the Emerald Demon Bird coldly. Be good. Otherwise, humph. Emerald Demon Bird raised its head but refused to pay any attention to him. It did not have a favorable impression of the man that once hurt it. Let's go. Tang Wulin unleashed his blue-silver grass and linked up with the surrounding plants to explore the situation in the area as they advanced. He had only walked 2 steps before he stopped and spoke to Gu. Can you ask the bird which direction we should take to leave this forest? Despite having the plant's guidance, a soul beast, especially one of a higher order with intelligence equal to a human such as this emerald demon bird, would understand the forest even more compared to them. Gu looked at the emerald demon bird. There seemed to be a flicker in her eyes as it chirped a few times. Gu nodded and spoke, Father, you're on the correct path. You can walk to the outside if you go in this direction. However, Little Emerald said that there are even more terrifying creatures out there, but it sounds like that means humans. Tang Wulin frowned. The place sounded more and more like what he had assumed. If it was true, it would be natural for soul beasts would fear mankind as it was mankind that continuously took over their original habitat. From what he could recall, the peripheral area of the entire Great Star Doe Forest's core should be heavily guarded in order to prevent the surviving powerful soul beasts inside from rioting. The large military presence did not come from the Federation but the Spirit Pagoda. On the continent, Shrek Academy's advantage was its prestigious reputation and its graduates from all over the world. On the other hand, Tang Sect's strong point was its resources and commercial value. The Spirit Pagoda's main strength was its control over the Soul Master's world through the Spirit Soul and the Spirit Ascension platform. The Spirit Pagoda's headquarters was located near Shrek Academy on the outside of Shrek City. It was also located not far away from the Great Star Doe Forest. The core of the Great Star Doe Forest had always been within the Spirit Pagoda's control, so no one knew what was actually happening inside. One would need to pay a high price to the Spirit Pagoda in order to enter the place. It was said that the Spirit Pagoda was rearing the most powerful soul beasts in a pen. He did not know how Gu and he had entered this place, but in order to walk out of here, not only did he need to deal with the powerful soul beasts in the forest but at the same time he would need to make it out of the Spirit Pagoda's tightly controlled perimeter before he left. At this point, Tang Wulin could not help looking at Gu. It was she that brought him into this place. Moreover, she must have a rather high position in the Spirit Pagoda by now. Yet she had no memories of the past and was as pure as a blank paper. It seemed like he could only bring along her as he applied the infiltration method learned from the old demons on the Demon Island as they broke free from the guarded area. They trekked through the forest aided by Gu's guidance from the Emerald Demon Bird. Emerald Demon Bird told Gu that there were only a few soul beasts left in the forest, so the beasts were not fighting for territory and instead lived in their own separate domains. Hence, the probability of encountering a soul beast was not considered too high. The bird had known the Scarlet Fire Monkey King, but they had not bothered each other. The Scarlet Fire Monkey King told the bird that human prey had entered the forest, so it came in an attempt to hunt for food. The Emerald Demon Bird's cultivation base seemed to have reached a bottleneck, so it could only evolve by feeding on a powerhouse's brain. The problem was that the soul beasts in the Great Stardow Forest were not that easy to deal, so it would not attack recklessly. The Soul Beast King that controlled the forest explicitly forbade soul beasts from killing each other, and it dared not disobey. What Soul Beast King? Tang Wulin asked the Emerald Demon Bird out of curiosity. The demon bird was stunned for a moment before it shook its head. The feathers on its entire body shivered as if it was terrified. Guu spoke curiously, "Little Emerald, don't be afraid. Tell us quick, who is the Soul Beast King?" The Emerald Demon Bird raised its head to look at her, blinked its red eyes, then lowered its head once again. This time, it refused to say anything further. Meanwhile, Tang Wulin sensed a gush of formless pressure radiating from all directions. His spiritual power that spread out through the plants was constricted all of a sudden. What was that? At the same time, Tang Wulin turned pale with fear. He hastily moved to Guu's side and grabbed her hand. The Emerald Demon Bird raised its head with a look of terror revealed in its eyes. The sky turned gloomy. The bright and warm sunlight vanished, and in its place was a stretch of darkness. Massive pressure descended from the sky, which invoked an indescribable fear. When Tang Wulin discovered that the origin energy and energy of the other attributes in the air were disappearing quickly, he was gripped with a sense of fear and panic. There was only the darkness element that remained. Roar! A deep roar sounded, rustling the entire forest. Who is it who dares to slaughter soul beasts? Who is it who dares to invade Stardow? The voice echoed throughout the forest. Despite Tang Wulin's efforts to communicate with the surrounding plants, it was silent all around. Tang Wulin felt his heart sink. Such a terrifying overbearingness could only come from a soul beast with 100,000-year cultivation base that was equal to mankind's title d'honneur. It was remarkably the most powerful soul beast Tang Wulin had ever met. It was the colossal octopus Tang Wulin encountered in the sea when he was heading to Star Luo Empire that could remotely be compared to it. The sky was completely pitch black with purple light flickering faintly. The surrounding air had a feel of ghastliness, reflecting the presence of the dense darkness element. It was as if there were countless bitter shrills echoing at the same time. The great forest that was initially filled with a life source had turned into a haunted region within seconds. The surroundings became incredibly quiet that even the sound of an insect's chirp was gone. Tang Wulin found it difficult to breathe. His soul power and blood essence power were almost pressured to freezing point. Even though he was well aware that his cultivation base meant nothing when he was confronting a true powerhouse, he was still unwilling to concede in such a situation. He was not afraid of death, neither did he have a wish to die. He still had many things to do. Besides, he had the heavy responsibility of reviving Shrek Academy. Yet, could he survive when he was confronted by such a formidable enemy? He could not do it even if he had Guu together to launch the Divine Dragon transformation. Moreover, they had just launched the Divine Dragon transformation earlier, so they could not possibly launch it again within a short period of time. He turned his head to the side and looked at Guu. She seemed to be frightened also as she hid by Tang Wulin's side in her ghastly pale look. She was grabbing his arm tightly. Tang Wulin felt pitiful in his heart. Would they finally end up vowing to die on the same day together in the Soul Beast's forest? No, absolutely not. He was going to protect her with his life even if he was to exhaust the last drop of his blood. At this point, Tang Wulin's aura that was initially suppressed began to reassert itself. His indomitable will ignited his bloodline once again. His bloodline fluctuation that was almost frozen was invigorated once again, while his soul power was also brimming with vitality. A misty golden halo was unleashed from his body. I'll never allow anyone to hurt you before I die. Tang Wulin took a deep breath as his one-word battle armor turned over and covered his entire body rapidly. He swiped his right hand on his forehead and conjured the golden dragon spear in his palm. His power was now elevating wildly, accompanied by the outburst of his bloodline. Her. A puzzled voice was heard in the distance. Meanwhile, Tang Wulin noticed a path opening in the great forest before him. The path was dark purple, so he could only see vaguely with the light from the dark purple radiance. A figure walked out slowly from the other end of the path. Her entire body was covered in purple-black scales. She had a slender figure with perfect, round breasts and long legs. The upper part of her chest was bared to reveal her snowy white skin and a deep cleavage between her breasts. Her long purple-black hair hung down loosely behind her back and away from her body even without the wind blowing. Her exquisite face was exceedingly charming with her deep purple eyes. Her lips, on the other hand, were a bright purple. An ink-black scale on her forehead rippled with layers of purple radiance streaming forth to the top of her head. Tang Wulin drew in a cold breath upon seeing her appearance. Initially, he assumed her to be a 100,000-year-old beast, but now, he was absolutely sure that the person before him was at the peak of its existence in the soul beast's world with a cultivation base of over 200,000 years. It was a beast with no equal. He had gathered immense knowledge about the beasts when he was studying in Shrek Academy. At the time, Tang Wulin was really interested, so he did some research of his own. It was considered achieving the limit when a soul beast could cultivate to a 100,000-year cultivation base. By then, there were only two ways the soul beast could continue to elevate itself. The first method was to cultivate into a human form and remove its beast skeleton in order to possess mankind's power of comprehension and higher intelligence. Then, it could become a god once it had broken through the limits of this world. However, there seemed to be a rule that a soul beast could never become a god, just like the story Gu once told. The majority of the soul beasts would not choose this path. After all, a human's age could never exceed 200 years no matter how powerful that person was. If the soul beast failed to break through to become a god, then, just like the humans, it would just become a part of history. The other path was to break through its own 100,000-year bottleneck. This stage involved overcoming heaven's punishment. The punishment would be 100,000 years later. The soul beast's body and spirit would perish together should the soul beast fail to break through. For those soul beasts who were confident enough, they would choose the latter path. If they were successful, they would then live another 100,000 years following the breakthrough. At the same time, the soul beast's power would increase tremendously once it had broken through the bottleneck to become a beast. If a 100,000-year soul beast was equal to a title dolor, then a beast would be equal to a hyper dolor. A beast with a longer cultivation age and more successful breakthroughs at the bottleneck would have even more terrifying power. There was once a beast with over a million-year cultivation base mentioned in the legends which broke through the bottleneck 10 times. On the other hand, there were beasts that were capable of transforming into the human form without choosing the path of cultivating into a human. The person, before his eyes, who was exuding a ferocious aura was undoubtedly a soul beast. She was also capable of transforming into a human and appeared perfect. She had to be a beast with at least 200,000 years of cultivation base, which would be equal to mankind's hyperdolor. On the other hand, Tang Wulin was only equal to a 7-ring soul beast even with his one-word battle armor. Furthermore, he was just a 7-ring soul sage without a martial soul avatar. No matter how gifted he was, he could not possibly fight the person before him, albeit the person was a dragon-type soul beast. The woman was getting closer. The dense purple radiance in her eyes was flowing outward to her sides. The closer she got, the stronger the pressure exerted on Tang Wulin. The golden light mist emitted from Tang Wulin's body grew more expansive. Tang Wulin was aware that the pressure was already close to the limit of his endurance. It was the strength of his indomitable willpower that supported the bloodline into continuously discharging the powerful aura to withstand the opponent's pressure. Tiny little human, you have the nerve to come to my great star doe forest and slaughter my soul beasts. How dare you, warned the purple-haired woman. She stopped walking abruptly when she was about 50 meters away from Tang Wulin. All of a sudden, her pupils constricted slightly for a moment as if she had seen something which left her puzzled. Tang Wulin crossed the golden dragon spear in his hand and spoke with a deep voice, I didn't mean to offend you. I didn't know how we ended up here either, as I was unconscious. The Scarlet Fire Monkey King attacked us without any instigation on our part. We killed it in self-defense. The purple-haired woman frowned, but she did not speak any further. Subsequently, the pressure radiating from her body weakened. Meanwhile, Gu stuck out her head from behind Tang Wulin as she looked at the woman curiously. They stood gazing at one another when the woman's body shuddered once. An intense shock flashed past her eyes. She was about to say something subconsciously, but she was stunned for a moment when she saw Gu's gaze. "What are your names?" the purple-haired woman asked in a deep voice. Tang Wulin spoke. "I'm Tang Wulin and this is my girlfriend, Gu. We don't mean to offend you, but if your excellency allows us to leave, I'm willing to give away my precious items in exchange." The woman looked at him as if she was deep in thought. The murderous intent that was initially unleashed from her body was subdued as if she was moved by Tang Wulin's words. "Exchange? What do you have to exchange with me?" She pondered as she asked the question. From her viewpoint, it would be easier to kill Tang Wulin. Yet, she recognized his identity earlier, but more importantly, she saw Gu standing behind Tang Wulin. This was troublesome. Tang Wulin was stunned for a moment. "That's right. What can I offer in exchange? There aren't many items that I can interest her in as a beast beyond her time." He had mostly rare metals with him. The heaven and earth treasures he collected were valuable to him, but he was afraid it meant nothing for a beast which had lived in Great Star Do Forest for many hundred thousands of years. Tang Wulin suddenly came up with an idea. "Are you from the Dragon Clan?" The purple-haired woman raised her brow slightly. "That's right. I'm from the clan of the Hell Demon Dragon." There was no point to conceal her identity. In reality, the person before Tang Wulin was ranked the 9th amongst the 10 great beasts of thousands of years ago. She was precisely the Hell Demon Dragon King. During that time, she was the leader of the 10 great beasts together with the gold-eyed Black Dragon King Di Qian. They were known as the 2 great Dragon Kings of the beasts. Even though her cultivation base was far inferior compared to the beast god Di Qian, the purity of her bloodline and her potential was on par with the beast god Di Qian. She was one of the rare pure-blooded dragons from the Dragon Clan. Thus, she was capable of breaking the heaven's punishment and cultivated to be a beast. The Hell Demon Dragon? Tang Wulin drew in a cold breath as he immediately recalled this person's identity. It was exceedingly rare for 100,000-year soul beast to exist. A soul beast capable of cultivating to become a beast was even scarcer. The Hell Demon Dragon before him was not just a myth. It truly existed. As he was thinking about this, he dared not let down his guard for fear that the other party would attack him. It was extremely important for him to stay alive. Moreover, there was Gu by his side. He raised his hand and removed the bracelet from his wrist. He spoke with a deep voice. "I once visited the Dragon Clan's graveyard on another continent. I got this bracelet from there. It may be of use to you." The bracelet exuded a gentle 7-colored radiance. If one were to look closely, one could genuinely sense the Dragon Clan's aura on it. The Hell Demon King lifted her charming brow as she raised her hand and waved at Tang Wulin gently. A gush of gentle suction guided the bracelet flying in her direction. The bracelet completed a distance of 50 meters in the blink of an eye and dropped onto the Hell Demon Dragon's fair palm. Yet, something happened during that split second when the bracelet came into contact with her palm. All of a sudden, a situation they never expected occurred. The 7-colored crystal that appeared ordinary suddenly glowed brightly. A gush of incredibly intense 7-colored radiance surged skyward. The present world, which was dark as ink, changed immediately to a world tainted with a dazzling multitude of 7 colors. It was as if there were countless giant dragons roaring loudly. "Ah!" The Hell Demon Dragon King screamed out in pain as the bracelet flew out of her hand. Speckles of 7-colored radiances condensed slowly to transform into a giant 7-colored shadow. The 7-colored shadow looked like a dragon with supreme overbearingness. Even the powerful Hell Demon Dragon King bent over with her hands and knees on the ground instantly. Her entire body was shivering intensely, but she could not budge at all. It was as if she was enduring some irresistible pressure. On the other side, Tang Wulin was stunned. In contrast, he did not feel anything at all, which made him completely different from the Hell Demon Dragon King. Not much had changed except the pressure exerted by the Hell Demon Dragon King had completely vanished. Tang Wulin felt extremely comfortable basking in the seven-colored radiance. Even Ji Yu, who was standing behind him, now stood by his side. There was a dazed look in her eyes that seemed to be deep in thought. The seven-colored crystal expanded in the sky, and in the next moment, it transformed into a stream of seven-colored lights that returned to Tang Wulin's wrist. Tang Wulin felt a gush of noble willpower radiating into him as if it had a special relationship with him. The sharp tip of the seven-colored crystal, shaped like a water droplet, suddenly poked downward and pierced through his radial artery. Fresh blood spewed out and melded with the seven-colored crystal. Tang Wulin felt a gush of extremely massive willpower surged into his brain at once. He gave out a muffled humph, then his vision darkened just as he fainted. "Father," the last voice he heard was Ji Yu's. In the distance, the Hell Demon Dragon King's body shuddered for a few minutes. The seven-colored radiance gradually disappeared, and everything returned to normal. She sat on the ground as she panted loudly. She was in shock and bewilderment as she looked at Tang Wulin, whom had fallen to the ground. His entire body was coated with a layer of seven-colored radiance. What was that? A blessing from the dragon god? She could obviously sense the dragon god's aura, but it was not the true dragon god, only his willpower. As a pure-blooded true dragon, she worshipped the dragon god just like all the pure-blooded true dragons. The dragon god was their religious idol. They could assume some of the dragon god's power once they had achieved a certain level of cultivation base. On the other hand, the dragon god's willpower earlier felt as if it was borrowed from the power of belief. After all the dragon clan's members were aware that the dragon god did not exist anymore. Yet, the faith in such a belief existed, although the belief could not be manifested by even 100 Hell Demon Dragon Kings. Such dissension of the dragon god's willpower could only appear back in those years during the dragon clan's period of great prosperity. How is this possible? How could it possibly happen to a human's body, because even Her Majesty could not do that? At the same time she was feeling shocked in her heart, she could not help gazing at Ji Yu. Ji Yu was also seized with panic as she called out to Tang Wulin, who was lying on the ground. "Father? What the heck?" The Hell Demon Dragon King was staring at Ji Yu, who was calling out anxiously in bewilderment. She got up from the ground and walked over to Ji Yu and Tang Wulin's side in quick strides. However, she dared not get too close because of the seven-colored radiance glowing on Tang Wulin's body. "Your Majesty," she called out softly. Ji Yu raised her head subconsciously with tears brimming in her eyes. "You're a bad person. Why did you hurt my dad? I hate you." "What?" The Hell Demon Dragon King's eyes widened. She could not believe all that was happening before her. Was Ji Yu still Her Majesty, whose heroic words had been so influential? No. Something was definitely wrong here. At this point, she dared not let her guard down as she soared into the sky and transformed into a stream of purple light before disappearing. The matter was already beyond her decision. The sky turned bright and clear once again as the sunlight shone on the ground. The forest was brimming with life and vitality under the sunlight. A dense life source resonated in the air. Everything had returned to normal. The seven-colored radiance continued to reverberate around Tang Wulin's body. He was unconscious, but he appeared as if he had just fallen asleep. It did not take long before the figures arrived silently. There were 4 of them who arrived in succession. One of them was the Hell Demon Dragon King, who left earlier. Among the other 3 were 2 males and 1 female. The female was also exquisitely beautiful. She was dressed in a long, emerald green dress that complemented her life source, which made her appear kind and friendly. Of the 2 males, one was a handsome youth but had an evil energy all around him, while the other was a middle-aged man with a strong temperament. The middle-aged man was apparently the leader of the 4. His hair was dark, but he had a long, golden lock draping over his cheek. His arrival seemed to make the great forest surrounding them go quiet. He did not need to put on any display of power, as his presence alone was enough. Your Majesty, the middle-aged man respectfully greeted Gu Yu immediately upon seeing her. Gu Yu raised her head with terror in her eyes. Who are all of you? Don't hurt my father. The group of four felt like they had turned to stone. They stood there at a loss as to whether they should laugh or cry. The handsome youth asked the middle-aged man, Big brother, what's going on with Her Majesty? Tang Wulin was already unconscious, and it was apparent that Gu Yu was not feigning her behavior. The middle-aged man stepped forth and stood before Gu Yu. Cowering, she immediately lowered her head and pounced onto Tang Wulin in an attempt to shield him with her own body. In this case, Gu Yu had naturally fallen into the seven-colored radiance. The radiance had only just touched the middle-aged man's hand, but I's entire body instantly shook violently. He fell back a few steps with a shocked expression on his face. The remaining three were even more astonished by what they had witnessed. They knew very well who this man was and how impressive his cultivation base, yet he had been stunned by this gentle seven-colored glow. This seven-colored radiance was so powerful. Just as I thought, it's the dragon god's willpower, the middle-aged man frowned, but how did the willpower descend upon him? He's a human being even if he has the Golden Dragon King bloodline in his body. This is not soul beast reconditioning. The Golden Dragon King bloodline is extraordinary, yet where does this dragon god's willpower come from? The purple-haired woman gave a forced smile. I have never seen such powerful dragon god's willpower in my life. Di Qian, what should we do? Yes, this middle-aged man before her was known as the Soul Beast God, the leader of the 10 great beasts, Golden-Eyed Black Dragon King Di Qian. Di Qian squinted his eyes and spoke to the youth, Demon Spirit, please lift up Her Majesty. I'll examine Her Majesty's body for a moment. The youth was stunned for a moment. Big brother, you can't even do it yourself. How can I? Di Qian spoke, the dragon god's willpower is only capable of having a mesmerizing effect on those of us from the dragon clan. You don't have the dragon clan's bloodline, so it will be fine for you. However, you can't hurt him as long as we're here. If you were to try, the dragon god's willpower would compel us to protect him. The youth spoke in astonishment, it's incredible that it would be so powerful. It's been so long since we had such an interesting turn of events, but I thought Big Brother said that the child ought to be killed? Her Majesty could possibly regain the dragon god's power by killing him. A bitter smile appeared on Di Qian's face. The decision was made by Her Majesty. It's even more difficult to tell now that there's dragon god's willpower in his body. Perhaps, his condition now was also arranged by Her Majesty. The youth walked in quick strides to Di Qian's side as he stretched out his hand and pulled Gu Yu up. A faint green glow circulated around his body. Though the glow was extremely mild, it was obvious that Gu Yu could not resist him at all. Gu Yu tried her best to struggle, but having been covered in the green light, she could not move an inch. Di Qian stretched out his hand and pressed it onto Gu Yu's forehead with a gentle shimmer flickering on his fingertips. Gu Yu's vision immediately started to dim, but as energy rippled from Di Qian's palm into her, a layer of fine silver scales emerged on her body. A moment later, Di Qian retracted his hand as if in relief. Her Majesty is fine. I think that she was so violently disturbed that her primordial spirit was disturbed as well. Her memories are muddled. Given her powerful self-healing abilities, it won't take long before Her Majesty returns to normal, even without any kind of assistance. Mankind's term for her condition is transient global amnesia. The rest of the three were put at ease. Hell Demon Dragon King could not help laughing and said, I see. I was shuddering with fear when Her Majesty called him father. So what do we do now, Di Qian? Di Qian pondered for a moment before he spoke, the matter is already beyond us, so let Her Majesty deal with this herself. Her Majesty won't be harmed, in any case. None of this will be an issue after her memories have recovered naturally. On the other hand, we can only continue to observe the human named Tang Wulin. The appearance of the dragon god's willpower in his body should be related to Her Majesty. I can understand Her Majesty's refusal to kill him now. It must be because she was trying to cultivate the dragon god's willpower. Her Majesty can accomplish great things in the future when she combines the Golden Dragon King's strength to awaken the Dragon God with this power in her possession. At that point, we can build the true divine realm, as is the right of soul beasts on this Dolor continent, and get out from under the foot of mankind. Clenching their fists tightly, the rest of the great soul beast's eyes were burning with a blazing fervor upon hearing his words. The four of them fell back quietly, and the green glow on Gu's body faded. It was only then that the emerald demon bird, with its emerald green feathers, dared to come out from her long silver hair. It looked toward the figures disappearing in the distance, still feeling fear in its heart. The whole time, Tang Wulin had been dreaming. He dreamed of many, many things. There were giant dragons soaring in the sky above an enormous island that extended into infinity. The dragons had scales of many colors, with different body sizes and a variety of unique traits. On the ground, the titanic mountain Dragon King dropped onto the sea and transformed into the continent. In the sky, the Holy Dragon King roared at the heavens with its incomparable power that awed the entire continent. The water dragon soared into the sky before diving into the sea continuously, creating great crashes of water. All things on earth submitted themselves to the home of the true dragons. It was a magnificent scene for the triumphant dragon clan. He had lost track of time when the sky suddenly turned red. Humongous balls of fire descended upon them, dropping into the sea and land. The giant dragons ascended into the sky and used their enormous bodies to block the fireballs. The fireballs broke apart and brought countless catastrophes. The forests were on fire, the rivers ran dry and the land cracked open. The entire world seemed to be collapsing after being struck by an untold number of fireballs. The giant dragons used their bodies to stop the barrage and used their strength to guard the whole world. Their bodies fell from the sky endlessly. They seemed to be moaning to the heavens and called out a name. The seven-colored radiance descended as a gargantuan yet phantom-like seven-colored dragon suspended in midair. It blocked most of the fireballs, so, with great effort, the great catastrophic apocalypse was prevented in the end. Even so, the dragon clan had fallen. The real dragons suffered from a huge number of fatalities, and given the clan's difficulties reproducing, this inevitably meant that they fell from the pinnacle of their power almost instantly. Countless giant dragons' corpses blanketed the entire earth. Everywhere was covered with pools of dragon blood. The other clans protected by the dragon clan started to mutate after soaking in dragon blood. They began to possess their own energy. Soul beasts. Are those soul beasts? Could it be that this is the origin of soul beasts? The gigantic seven-colored phantom flapped its wings abruptly in midair. The sky shook violently as a massive rift appeared. A powerful vortex pulled the countless dragon clan's corpses off the ground and fused them into the rift. Most of the dragon clan on the earth vanished, leaving behind very few real dragons. Those that were still alive had been severely injured. The rift in the sky slowly closed while the seven-colored phantom fused into the rift before disappearing without a trace. The scene changed. Tang Wulin was looking at the massive dragon clan's graveyard that he once visited. Within the enormous graveyard, the dragon clan's corpses covered the plain. Time passed, and the corpses gradually decomposed into skeletons. Countless dragon clan skeletons remained there, exuding an aura of unimaginable sorrow. The seven-colored phantom sat in the middle of the dragon clan's graveyard. The glow from its body was flickering, and light flew from the dragon clan's corpses silently to the phantom before slowly fusing into it. This video will end here. Like video and subscribe to my channel.